obviously. Here's Lion Advocacy, and we're going to talk about what he says because I think it kind of sets the stage for where we are. I think everybody's shit shocked about the state of the law in all of our countries. In the UK, people are being arrested for silently praying outside of abortion clinics. Right? The US people are being put in jail for protesting January 6th and for protesting abortion clinics by sitting and doing a pray-in, but violent criminals are getting out, and the same is happening in Canada, right? Run over a pylon in Canada, then you get 10 months in jail. Run over a protester with a horse and you get celebrated and maybe a raise, right? And so there's a big discrepancy and a huge problem here, and people see it. So Lion Advocacy kind of lays it out from a legal standpoint, and I like that. He says, I have this weird feeling that the entire legal community across Canada is kind of in shock right now, and none of us know quite what to do. In shock what our government has done, what it plans on doing, how it's doing it, how it's changing business and interpersonal relationships, what has the government done? Unlawful and heavy-handed use of force, disproportionate regulatory fines, gratuitous use of notwithstanding clause, conflating, ignoring separation of powers, ignoring legal advice, claiming cabinet confidence inappropriately. The list goes on. What does the government plan on doing? Further testing the limits of encroachment of charter rights, further expansion of regulatory oversight, use of heavy-handed fines to restrain businesses, individuals, rapid deployment of untested policies, EV tech, further invasion of privacy. And so there's all sorts of things going on, and people, I often talk about the Hydra. There's so many issues, and if you engage with one, that 8 others carry on, and they're all as egregious as each other. And so if you engage with one, and you're at this point in time, and I don't want to be hopeless or anything to that effect, but winning is rare, right? Like, there have been people who have taken things on, and yeah, we got a great legal opinion, a legal decision that came out that said the Emergencies Act was inappropriately engaged and it was illegal. It was ultra vires, and all of the rest of that. We got a legal win, and sure, that legal win should strike at the foundation of all of this crap, but it hasn't. Right? So even when you win, you kind of lose. There was a vote for an inquiry into the Chinese interference that happened like a year ago. March, I think it was, right? In 23. A year ago, nobody said boo, right? Oh, well, yeah, we'll put Johnson on it. Right, okay. That's great. Good job. So now, happened a year ago, nothing has happened. And still, nothing has happened. So I don't mean to be hopeless about, legal avenues or anything like that, but it doesn't look good, right? And so in Europe, it doesn't look good there either. And what they're doing is protesting bigly. And how are they protesting? Radio Genoa says supermarket shelves in France and Belgium are starting to be empty. No farmers, no food. Ruh-roh. I mean, when the supermarkets start to look empty, that's not good. And the citizens will be lied to. I've been watching the Hunger Games, and the third movie of the Hunger Games. So there's like Hunger Games. Catching Fire, and then Mockingjay Part 1 and 2. So I'm in Mockingjay Part 1 right now. And a lot of it is the District 13 versus the Capitol. And basically what I'm saying is they will do anything to win. Either side, both sides will do anything to win. The good guys and the bad guys will do anything to win, right? Like the District 13 is using Katniss to bolster their propaganda war. Katniss agrees with them, so she's okay with being their mascot. And PETA, the other one, right, like Katniss and Peter, a team or whatever, is the Capitol's weapon, and he'll do anything to win too because he believes what the Capitol's told them, and so on and so forth. And there's other competing things, but watching this movie, like watching what's going on with the disinformation and the misinformation, and people being afraid to speak out, like they have peacekeepers that are in the districts to make sure that the plebs, the people who have to work in the mines and things like that, don't rise up because the Hunger Game is punishment. The Hunger Games are punishment for the rising up that they did 100 years ago or something like that. So there's these two classes of people within the cities, and so the underclass exists and they kind of break the law, and sometimes there's crossover between the overclass and the underclass, but it's very, very much like a group of enforcers, so your Antifa, et cetera, and there are parallels in the Second World War, and people make the comparison of Nazis, but man, that's a whole other rabbit hole, so we'll not get waylaid. The point I'm trying to make is they're trying to remake. It's watching the Hunger Games when it came out in 2010, 11, 12, 13, right? Then I think that's when it came out. Maybe it was even earlier. The Catching Fire one was like 20, whatever, it doesn't matter. But the early late 2000s, early 2010s, when that movie came out, it looked like a thought experiment. It didn't look like reality. And now it looks like reality. That was a long way to get there, but now it looks like reality. And there's a lot of parallels to the way they have the propaganda war. There's a lot of parallels to misinformation. There's a lot of parallels to controlling information and making sure that the wrong information doesn't get out, because it would cause unrest and so on and so forth. The more I look at it, the more I watch it, it seems like, if not a warning, then predictive programming, something to that effect. But we were exposed to this for a reason, on purpose. When I read The Hunger Games when it first came out, and I did, I thought, oh, like another kind of Harry Pottery book. Let me talk about Harry Potter in just a minute too. Another Harry Pottery book, geared towards teens, right? Like, that's interesting, apocalyptic, cool, I'll read it. And I thought it was just, another creative author, right? Just like Harry Potter. And now I'm like, wow, this goes deep. One of the things with Harry Potter, so like witchcraft, right? It makes witchcraft accessible. It makes it fun. You're going to Hogwarts to learn to be a witch or a wizard, and it's very, very, your guard is down. You're like, oh, it's so wholesome. J.K. Rowling, so wholesome, right? There's issues there. What's her face? Taylor Swift, right? She's known as a witch, right? She's got songs talking about witchcraft. She's doing all rituals at her thing, at her shows, and that's weird. And she threw up a couple of sixes, right, with the latest, like, we're going to win the Super Bowl post, and people are pointing it out. People are noticing it. So, like, on one hand, you've got this, wholesome author who created this children's series, this beloved children's series, and I remember hearing, like, religious people denounce it and say, oh, Harry Potter's witchcraft, and we can't listen to this, and I dismissed them at the time because it's 2008 or 9 or something like that, and I thought, that seems a little much, like, seems pretty innocent to me, and now, totally different perspective. It's very interesting because it's like having Hannah Montana or Lizzie McGuire, and then turning Hannah Montana is a better example, right? You've got Hannah Montana, who's a very wholesome person and a role model to young girls. She did a show, Hannah Montana, right? It's Miley Cyrus. And then you take Miley Cyrus at 19 and you turn her into a wrecking ball, right? And you sexualize her to a degree, and like you have her twerk on Robin Thicke at the award ceremony. So all the girls who grew up watching Hannah Montana, that wholesome, girl on the show, now they're flipped into Miley Cyrus being this aggressively sexual, weird twerking thing. On purpose? Yeah, yes, 100% on purpose. Okay, so the only way out of this is, I think, what the French are doing and what the Belgians are doing. But when grocery stores get empty, the people in the populations panic. And yeah, how are they going to get food? Because that is a concern, right? People need to eat. So there's a problem. Here's what's going on in the grocery stores.
Tomber en rupture de stock. Plus de marchandises grâce à la grève. Continuez les gars comme ça, vous allez bientôt atteindre votre objectif.
They're going down the produce aisles and bread aisles, things like that, and there's nothing. This is produce, veggies, and things. There's stuff, like you can still get some stuff, right? Bam, bam, bam. There's stuff there, and it doesn't look like the prices are too outrageous either. So it's not like we're seeing the prices go skyrocket because there is no stock. But again, like, that's concerning. And when do you think people get worried? Here is farmers encircle Paris to fight climate scams and climate communism. Yep, and that's part of it. You can see a big fire. We've seen this kind of a similar configuration from the top. Here's Peter Sweden. He says, "Where are we? Thousands of farmers have surrounded the EU building in Brussels to protest against the climate agenda." You can share it, he says. And yeah, so they've surrounded the EU building. There you go. And then you've got City of Guelph wants to have a carbon credit innovation challenge. As part of our Food Future, Guelph Wellington Smart Cities initiative to create a technology-enabled circular food economy, the City of Guelph has launched an innovative challenge to create new regional currency or loyalty program leveraging carbon credits on the voluntary market. Yeah, voluntary until it's not anymore. We're looking for an innovative partner. They don't even know how they're going to use this. We're looking for an innovative partner, a startup, an entrepreneur, a not-for-profit business or established business with an idea for how carbon credit-backed digital currency or loyalty program could incentivize climate-positive and circular actions by small businesses and or individuals. They have no idea. They have no clue. And they don't understand business. Not even they don't understand the first thing about business. They've just been told, we want a carbon tied central bank digital currency, and they're going to do it. I'm just showing you that there because it didn't really fit anywhere else. And it's WEF stuff. And these people are protesting WEF fundamentally, the globalist takeover. Here's Greece. Greece is protesting, and they are out in force, honking away, right? A lot of tractors, people out. So that's interesting. And there's police out too. So I really feel like these European leaders are going to get together and do what the Canadian leadership decided to do. Here's Arthur, and he's speaking out, saying that none of these politicians are going to work for you. They're working for everybody else. They're working for the globalists, basically. And he says, if you make me king, I'll put them in jail, basically. Here you go.
If you for a second think that the
Oh, man, too fast. Sorry, here we go.
politician will get you out of this trouble, then you're either delusional or stupid. No politicians will be able to get you out of this trouble. We must rise up and get ourselves out of the trouble. I would suggest to you that if you know a professional politician, ditch him out unless he marched with us in the past 3 years, unless he showed up and bled with us and was freezing to death with us. If he was not there, if she was not there, you have your answer. You have your answer. They don't care if you live and die. They don't care about your children. They don't care about your future. They care about themselves. And I would say to you that 99.99999% of the so-called servants of the people are traitors. If you would, for whatever reason, would elect me king, I would charge them with treason. I would charge them all with treason.
I don't think that that's far off. I honestly don't think, and I mean, king does the title matter? Yes. But I don't think that Arthur is too far off with what needs to happen to make sure this doesn't happen again. If people can lock down the economy and have horses trample citizens and have a claim of insurrection when there clearly was none, if they can lie about COVID, who says that they're not lying about climate change? 97% of scientists agree. It seems a little convenient, right? 97% of scientists agree this is safe and effective too. So it just seems very suspect. Remember when I showed you at the beginning of this little series of clips that that France was protesting, and quite effectively they've made Paris, well, they've put it under siege, right? The city is blockaded. And what's Macron doing? He's at an Elton John concert. Not this time, but last time he was at the Elton John concert. So this time what's happening, right? With the yellow vest. Remember, he went to Elton John and the next day there was a big crackdown and the yellow vest kind of dissipated. And Disclosed TV yesterday, was reporting Macron and his wife enjoyed a lavish gala dinner at Stockholm Palace while farmers cooked sausages on open fires near Paris. I mean, did Justin Trudeau come to visit him during this outing? Like, it's one of those things. Justin's single now, so it wouldn't even raise eyebrows. But the whole thing is very, very interesting. Does it look like Macron's worried? It doesn't seem like it to me, right? So I don't think, where's the pen? I don't see the politicians riding in on a white horse to solve all of our problems. I think that the truckers are more the solution. I think that the farmers are more the solution, and the taxi drivers and all of the people who are standing in the center of Paris saying, no, we're not going to do this, or on the outskirts of Paris, saying, no, we're not going to do this. And like, you're going to have to arrest all of us. And the thing is, they decided that they don't have to arrest all of you. They just have to arrest you if you drive over a traffic cone, right? They have to make an example of a few of you so that everybody's so afraid of spending 700 days, 2 years in a jail cell without due process because the government is being wielded by an entity that is not the public. The governed public is not in charge of the instrument of the government at this point in time. The people in charge of the government who are wielding that instrument are working for globalist foreign interests, right? Ukraine, anybody but Canada. And they'll do anything to win, including calling the Emergencies Act to shut down the truckers. You see? And so the only way to win is to understand that we need to have, well, it looks like what's going on in Europe, the truckers aren't leaving. And so maybe the Canadians can learn a lesson, because the reason these farmers, the farmers in Europe, the reason these farmers are doing what they're doing is because Canadian truckers did what they did. And so maybe they can teach us some lessons about how to finish this whole thing. How about that? Here's Larry Brock talking about the illegality of what the Trudeau government did. It's 3 minutes long. It's so long, and it's good. All of it's really good. He talks about 2 different charter violations, and right to be absent of involuntary search and seizure, or improper search and seizure, and people who had their bank accounts frozen. And then the first one, I can't remember what the first one is. I'll let him talk about the first one. Fundamentally, he's saying the government acted illegally, and we need to fix this, basically. But difficult to do because the government doesn't want to do that, and Jagmeet Singh's helping them. So here's Larry Brock.
Legal precedent that clearly says the government did not comply with 2 sections of the charter. Section 8, which is the right to be secure against unreasonable search and seizure, the issue regarding the seizing of the bank accounts, the reporting requirements that the banks had to report back to FINTRAC. These are serious actions taken by the federal government. Chrystia Freeland was claiming that this was being funded by terrorists and
money laundering,
and being funded by foreign entities, all of which completely untrue. But she had the government accept that version, and she established that as a justification for her use of those wide sweeping banking powers. So we have that infraction. We also have the infraction of Section 2, the freedom to express oneself. Right? We have to remember that the genesis, the origin of this conflict, this protest that we had in Ottawa over 2 years ago, was a decision made by Justin Trudeau and the government to impose different regulations on long-distance truck drivers, mandating that they get the shots. And if they didn't get the shots, they wouldn't be allowed to continue their living and cross the borders. Well, several thousands and thousands of truckers, international truckers, did comply with that order, but there was still a significant portion of Canadian truckers that said, you, Mr. Trudeau, and your government will not dictate what I put into my body. And how ironic that was the same sort of position that our Prime Minister had taken and said, no government should impose any vaccine mandates on its citizens. So how quickly the narrative can change depending on the situation. So Justice Mosley was very, very clear.
So I'll just leave it there, but the last minute is worth listening to as well. And it is concerning what's going on with the government violating basic rights of the governed, the government violating the agreement between the government and the governed, by violating our basic charter rights, and ignoring the legal opinions, because they're going to appeal, right? Ignoring the legal opinions they don't agree with. This is not how this works. Not usually, anyway. And it's not how it should work. That's for sure. So Regina says the Accountability Project is a grassroots movement to hold to account all those who abused the Emergencies Act and cause undue harm and suffering to Canadians. I will be actively involved in this initiative. Please share. So this is the team who won the Mosley decision. I think this is the guys who won the Mosley decision. They say, to our fellow Canadians, after historic victory in federal court, our legal team at Loberg, Ector, Vincent Gerses, Eddie Cornell, and Jeremiah Jost are taking the next steps in legal action by suing those in government, the financial institutions who froze people's bank accounts, and the police officers who beat up and injured innocent Canadians. Our team took on this challenge for all Canadians, and we're doing it again. This time we're asking all Canadians who have been affected as a result of the Emergencies Act to act in vocation to join us in this historic lawsuit. The more Canadians we have to join us in this fight, the greater our chances of success. This initiative is a massive undertaking and will take a tremendous amount of resources and financial support. This is why we are launching the Accountability Project, a completely independent and transparent fundraising initiative. Our website, tapcan.org, will be up shortly with more information, ways to donate and get involved. To join in the fight for accountability, reach out to us at the email there. Help hold them accountable, blah. So link is in the description if you're interested. I don't know, like, I can't vouch for them. I don't know, but it seems like there are people who are trying to hold the government to account, right? And so if you're interested, if you want to reach out, there's potentially option or opportunity. Here's the drug stuff. So here is Speaker Johnston in the US talking about how China does organ harvesting, and that's not great, right? Organ harvesting, we can all agree, I think we can all agree, is a bad thing, right? Here we go.
Practitioners and other prisoners of conscience in China. Watch.
Tibetan Buddhists and Falun Gong practitioners are placed in forced labor camps, and they have their organs harvested by the Chinese Communist Party. And at this moment, the U.S. has an opportunity and an obligation to prevent genocide and punish those who commit it. As China, yes.
Last year, the House overwhelmingly passed a bill to punish the CCP for its forced organ harvesting and targeting prisoners of conscience. And right now, a coalition of over 100 lawmakers, doctors, academics, and civil groups are also calling on the United Nations to establish an international criminal tribunal to investigate the CCP's crimes of forced organ harvesting. Back in 2019, an independent tribunal in London concluded after a year-long investigation that forced organ harvesting had taken place in China for years and on a significant scale.
So what happens when they look at Canada? This was a report from last year, by the way. This is 23, not 24. This isn't yesterday. This is a year ago yesterday, right? Just to make sure we're very clear on that. But I was looking for the information to back this up. So this guy is talking about how organ transplants, this at the beginning here, he's talking about brain death. And then he talks about how you can't get a cadaver, you can't get a healthy organ from a cadaver. So you can't, if somebody's dead, you can't harvest organs from them. They're dead. So, and the organ's not viable then. It's dead. So can't do anything about that. So they invented brain death in order to harvest organs. Is brain death something that happens? According to this guy, Harvard came up with it with no tests or anything like that. And they had somebody who they wanted to target for organ transplant who was showing brainwaves, so they removed the brainwave thing. So we'll just listen to the beginning part here, and then I'll jump ahead to the cadavers thing, and then I'll finish it off at the end with the drugs, because he specifically ties it together with the drugs. It's a 5-minute video, and again, like, this whole thing is probably worth watching. If you're interested, link is in the description. Link is in the description. I knew it was going to be too fast. The link is in the description, and hopefully I've got the link down there. I try to remember. Sometimes I get called away, and then I'm away for like a couple of hours, and during those hours I get emails, and I'm like, oh man, I feel so bad. Email me, because make me feel bad, because I should put it up, and I try to, but sometimes I unintentionally don't. So I appreciate the reminders. I'm not telling you not to email me. It's just like, sometimes I'm like, man, I wish I had my computer right in front of me, because it'd take me 10 seconds. Okay, here we go.
Committee at Harvard, and the committee invented brain death. The committee did not do studies on dogs or cats or rats. They didn't collect data on human beings. They just invented brain death. And they had no patient data. They had no basic science studies. And I know it's really awful when you know about it. And it doesn't get better. It keeps getting worse after that. Then a lot of people think that brain death means flat brainwaves. They're not even required to do brainwave testing. No way they did that. They studied 9 patients, and 2 of the 9 still had brainwave activity. And then they concluded no longer is it necessary to look at brainwaves. So it's not required to look for brainwave activity.
So when they're doing the
Okay, I'll just cue it up for the next part. Here he's talking about how people who are designated requesters for organs find people who have sensitive family members, and then they sidle up to them to get to know them so they get access to the organ, right? So it's like, well, he explains it here, like, oh, just some good should come of this tragedy.
Getting them indoctrinated
procurement
to get their organs. And
I need to go take a shower.
see, and you cannot get any organs from a cadaver. Every organ that's transplanted is a healthy organ, and you can only get healthy organs from living persons. You cannot get any organs for transplant from a cadaver.
That's why you don't put it on your license.
And the things I'm telling you is that you are not allowed to hear. and because if you hear it, you will be upset, as all three of you are upset, and rightly so. You should be upset because whose organs do they want? They want the organs from certainly from all children, but especially the people who are 16 to 30, and their life is in jeopardy. If they're unconscious and on a ventilator, they're going to get their organs, and they do everything to get their organs. And once the organs are taken, you can't bring them back to life. And so what they do is they tell the relatives, well, you know, your daughter Sally would really like to do something good, and this is a way to make something good out of this tragedy, or your son, and while they have been getting organs from accidents and gunshot wounds, they now get more organs from overdose of drugs than they do from accidents and gunshot wounds combined. There are 8 deaths a day from overdose in Ohio, and they get their organs is what they want. And so what are they doing? They're giving the policemen the Narcan to counteract the drug, which gets them into the emergency room, but it doesn't save their life. It gets them in the emergency room, and they still get their organs.
Diabolical. I don't know if you heard what he said there, but the Narcan is to not necessarily save their life. It's to keep the body alive, to keep the organs viable. Sick stuff. Here is Government of Canada, opiate and stimulant-related harm in Canada. Deaths. There were a total of 40,642 apparent opioid toxicity deaths between January 2016, and June 2023. A total of 3,970 apparent opioid toxicity deaths occurred so far in 2023. That's January to June, first 6 months of 2023. This is an average of 22 deaths per day. Where are those organs going? Right? The number of total apparent opioid toxicity deaths in Canada reported so far in 23 was 5% higher compared to the same period in 22. This is based on preliminary data subject to change as death investigations are completed and reported. So do you understand that the government funding safe injection sites and Narcan is to increase the numbers of organs to harvest? It seems like it's not just China doing organ harvesting. Ohio too, maybe. And Wokeness says how it started, how it's going. Politico reports on November 9th, 2020, Oregon becomes the first state to decriminalize small amounts of heroin and other street drugs, right? That's a nice quick death. It's not like smoking where you languish on for 20 years and nobody can use any of your organs, right? Jeepers creepers, this fentanyl will get you gone, and then we can use most of your organs, right? Oregon leader declares 90-day state of emergency on January 31st, 2024 in downtown Portland to address the fentanyl crisis. What are they doing, right? Is this outlandish? Is this crazy talk, do you think? Is this something to be dismissed? The wild ramblings of a political pundit too long in the tooth, right? No, maybe, yes. I don't know. I think that it is completely diabolical that in the context of wanting to send Europeans and Westerners to war for Ukraine, in the context of even historical context of sending people off to Vietnam and World War I and World War II, all of this, to remove and kill people, this is a much more profitable way to get to the same ends. And do I think that they're above it? No. I think that they would absolutely do this. I think that this flies under the radar. People don't want to talk about a failure or a drug-addicted family member who's sadly passed on, unless it's a success story and you met the donor recipient or something to that effect. All sorts of this stuff. It stinks, and it seems to me it's designed so it just bubbles under the surface. Nobody talks about it because it's uncomfortable. Scary, as all get out scary. So you let me know what you think, Smith, and this whole gender ideology thing. Lots of people are saying this is a win. Chanel Fall does not think this is a win, but it is absolutely. It's worth listening to a part of this. It's 7.5 minutes, so we can't listen to all of this. But I'm going to show you the part. Well, this is important. This part right here. It's too fast. Hold on. It's not. Okay, I made it the right speed. Here we go. This is Danielle Smith talking about decisions adults make, including changing your biological sex.
Our children the right to grow and develop into mature adults so that they are better prepared to make the most impactful decisions affecting their lives. Decisions like choosing a career, a partner, raising children, their interaction with legal drugs like alcohol and cannabis, their sexual activities and preferences, and many other adult choices. It is my view that list of adult choices includes deciding whether or not to alter one's biological sex. Making permanent and irreversible decisions regarding one's biological sex while still a youth can severely limit that child's choices in the future.
When somebody says you can do something that is not possible, that's a problem for me, right? It's like, listen, I'd like to fly like Superman. And if you say, we've got a surgery for you on that, and I say, great, wonderful, let's do that. And then afterwards, I can't fly like Superman, that's probably selling something that is not, like that's a false advertising, right? Sure, you could put me in the Superman suit, right? You can give me a little hair curl, just like Clark. I could even wear some glasses. Oh, I was going to wear some glasses. But I could do all sorts of things and look like Superman, but I'm not flying like Superman. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. There is nothing in the world that is going to make me fly like Superman. And to have the premier of a province say, some adults sometimes want to change their sexual gender, their sex. They just want to change their sex. And, they do that by cutting off sexual organs. It's false, right? Like if I tell you, okay, I'm going to make you fly like Superman, but in order to do that, I need to amputate both your legs. You're like, great, let's do this. And then I amputate both your legs and you're like, all right, this leg thing is very inconvenient. Can't wait to do the flying thing. And I say, okay. And then I never see you again. And then I claim that you're an anti-flyer, right? Like, how is this a win? This isn't a win to me. This is normalizing. She goes on to say 17-year-olds can do certain things, 15-year-olds can do certain things. If you want to change your pronouns, your parents have to be involved, blah, 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 blah. This normalizes this. This is not a win. This is a big loss to me. And I don't think that people realize that. And it's unfortunate. Chanel Fall says the same. She says, I'll preface it by saying, what's your game, Danielle Smith? But Chanel Fall says, I'll preface this by saying that I like Danielle Smith and I support her efforts to address this. Unfortunately, though, she is currently seeking to find a middle ground with a cult. She's playing their game and using their language. Gender identity is not a real thing. It's a made-up term for something that does not exist. Biological sex, i.e. sex, simply, cannot be altered. It is an immutable trait. I don't know how we are to fight this ideology when even our most base politicians refuse to discuss this issue truthfully without ideologically ridden language. Yeah, like this is a problem. Here's Fonzie jumping the shark. Do I need to go through Fonzie jumping the shark? This is the part in Happy Days when Fonzie jumped the shark. This is where the term jumping the shark comes from. Fonzie is wearing his leather jacket and he's got a yellow life jacket and there's a shark in the water for some reason and he jumps the shark. Danielle Smith is midair jumping the shark when she says things like, as an adult, you might want to change your gender, right? That's not possible. It's not possible. If you want to cut off your junk and you want a doctor to do that and me to pay for it with taxes, no. Like the answer is no. That seems like a mental health issue, not an affirmation issue. You're not changing your gender. You're cutting off your sexual organs, your healthy sexual organs. Why does Canada believe in female genital mutilation? Again, if this is winning, like I don't want to see what losing looks like. Holy smoke. We're not winning with this situation. We are absolutely losing. Danielle Smith is normalizing this, right? Oh yeah. If you want to cut off your junk, we'll pay for you. You just have to be old enough. Get real. No. If somebody came in to the doctor's office and said, I don't identify with this hand, cut this hand off, they'd be like, get out of here. Like you don't identify with that hand, go see a psychiatrist, but don't take any psychiatric medication. But cutting off the hand is not one of the things that should be an option. Like what's the goal here? We're gonna mutilate your sex organs, and then you're going to be a girl. Like no, that's not happening. It's not happening. The heretical liberal is responding to this as well. He says the inevitable self-correction of the overreach of gender ideology is picking up steam. This doesn't go nearly far enough, but it's a start. Continuing to use the language of the gender cult only reinforces the false premise of the ideology that gender dysphoria should be in the realm of sexuality, civil rights, and identity, when in reality it is purely a mental health concern and needs to be treated as such. That isn't saying that we shouldn't be empathetic of people with gender dysphoria, just like we should be empathetic and understanding of all people with serious psychiatric conditions. But it's absurd to make this an identity that should be celebrated. It's a devastating mental illness, and it's appropriate to treat it as such, no different than someone with schizophrenia or anorexia. We all have sympathy for people with those diseases, and we all want them to have all the support they need to be treated. But we understand that these are mental health disorders, and we wouldn't dream of treating those diseases with surgery, right? Like if somebody said, I can get rid of your schizophrenia, but I have to cut off your hand, and then they cut off your hand and you still have schizophrenia, problem, right? But that's exactly what's happening with gender dysphoria. It doesn't fix it. Imagine if we treated anorexia by affirming the patient's distorted self-image, affirming their obesity, prescribing them liposuction, and calling it anorexic affirming care. Imagine if we told schizophrenics that their hallucinations were real and then forced the rest of society to play along and pretend to talk to their imaginary friends. Why would we never dream of affirming delusions about one's weight or the sense of reality, but not think twice about affirming delusions of one's sexed body? We need to understand gender dysphoria as the physician condition, or as a psychiatric condition that it is, both to prevent this dangerous gaslighting of society by being forced to pretend or to believe fundamental lies about ourselves and our reality in order to participate in polite society, but also for the sake of trans people who need an appropriate and effective mental treatment and protection from dangerous and irreversible physical treatment, right? And predatory people who are willing to take advantage of them, which maybe includes Danielle Smith. And if we continue to affirm the delusions by using the language of the gender cult, we can never make that shift as a society. I agree. This is not a win. CTV is reporting the same thing. This is more details about what's going on. Premier Smith has announced a raft of changes affecting transgender Albertans, including requiring parental consent for students 15 and under who want to change their names or pronouns at school. Smith said students 16 and 17 would not need consent, but their parents must be notified. She announced that changes, so like 16 and 17-year-olds are now adults in Alberta, I guess. She announced that the changes Wednesday in a video posted to X, the platform formerly known as Twitter, and said that they came after discussion with her United Conservative Party caucus. So, Smith announced gender reassignment surgeries to be banned for those 17 and under. For those 15 and under, puberty blockers and hormone therapies for the purpose of gender reassignment or affirmation would also not be allowed, except for those who have already begun the process. That, if it's male, that sentences that male to having a micropenis for their life. Like, what an awful thing to do to somebody. Youth who are 16 and 17 can begin hormone therapies if they're deemed mature enough and have a parent, physician, and psychologist approval. Again, I don't think we know what happens when you give too much testosterone to a girl or too much estrogen to a boy. Like, it's probably a bad idea. And yet the UCP has decided in caucus altogether that let's do that. Let's allow people to do that. It's fine. And everybody's saying, yay, this is a win. It is anything but. Absolutely anything but a win. Holy smoke. Yesterday, Hello everyone, thanks very much for watching. This is just a short version of a longer show. If you'd like to get the whole show, you can go over to CanadaPoly.com and sign up for a subscription. Just look in the drop-down tab for Shop and Donate and look for subscriptions, and you'll get immediate access to the full show. Love to see you. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful